Welcome to this explainer. So think about what you were doing right before you clicked on this. Chances are you were actively trying to avoid being bored, right? I mean, we all do it. It feels like we're just killing time or maybe staying productive. But Harvard researcher Arthur Brooks makes this wild argument. He says this modern habit of constantly avoiding boredom is literally draining the meaning right out of our lives. It sounds totally counterintuitive, doesn't it? We've been taught that staying busy and entertained is the ultimate goal. Well, today, we're going to look at why flipping that idea completely on its head might be exactly what we need.
Okay, let's dive into this with a scenario that honestly sounds like a bad joke, but is actually a very real reflection of human psychology. Would you rather sit and be bored for 15 minutes or give yourself a painful electric shock? Just put yourself in that room for a second, okay? It's completely empty, no posters on the walls, no phone in your pocket, absolutely nothing. It's just you, a chair, and a button. And if you press that button, it delivers a jolt of literal physical pain. Which one are you choosing? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, right? Any rational person would clearly pick a few minutes of mild boredom over actual physical pain. Or so you think.
Well, human psychology is way more bizarre than we'd give it credit for. Harvard psychology researcher Dan Gilbert actually ran this exact experiment. He put people in an empty room for exactly 15 minutes, gave them strict instructions to do absolutely nothing, and left them with that one catch, a button that delivers a painful electric shock. The results are absolutely staggering. A massive majority of the participants actually chose to hit the button. Yeah, they actively chose the physical pain of an electric shock over being left alone with nothing but their own thoughts. We hate boredom that much. Our brains perceive boredom as something so agonizing that literal pain is a better option. And this brilliantly illustrates the underlying science of why we hate doing nothing so profoundly. It really all comes down to something called the default mode network, or the DMN. Now, this isn't just empty space or static in your head. It's a specific set of structures in your brain that actively fire up the second you don't have anything else to focus on. It's basically the cognitive system that takes the wheel when your mind is unoccupied. So, say you forget your phone at home, and you're just sitting there at a long red light. Boom, your default mode network switches right on.
But here's the catch, and as Arthur Brooks points out, it's a big one. The default mode network makes us think about things that might be, well, kind of uncomfortable. When your mind wanders because there's nothing to distract it, it doesn't just play relaxing elevator music. Oh no. It starts asking these massive, existentially heavy questions. Things like, what does my life actually mean? Or am I doing the right things with my time? Does any of this have purpose? We inherently hate the DMN because it forces us to confront these massive, unresolved questions. Facing our own existence is mildly uncomfortable, so our gut instinct is to just shut that network down as fast as humanly possible.
So, the crucial point is, when we constantly avoid that discomfort, we get trapped in what Arthur Brooks evocatively calls the doom loop of meaning. See, for most of human history, you couldn't escape the default mode network. You just had to sit with your thoughts while you were farming or walking or resting. But today, we have built the ultimate technology to completely eliminate boredom and essentially keep the DMN turned off permanently. And by doing that, we are creating a massive societal crisis. Because if we never allow our brains to process those huge, uncomfortable questions, we never find the answers. We completely lose our grip on what our lives actually mean. To put into perspective just how bad this doom loop has gotten, I want you to think about the number 15. No, actually, scratch that. I don't mean 15 minutes, like in the Harvard study. I mean 15 seconds. That is literally how little time it takes for us to panic today. Think about it. If you're standing at a street corner waiting for the light to change, and you realize you have to just stand there for 15 seconds, what do you instinctively do? You reach right into your pocket and you pull out a screen. We have entirely lost the ability to wait even 15 seconds without desperate stimulation. We are terrified of letting the DMN turn on for even a fraction of a minute.
And this behavior, it sets off a really devastating cascade. First, we are constantly on the run from boredom. The second we feel even a slight twinge of an activity, we grab a screen. Second, that move successfully shuts off the default mode network, so we dodge those uncomfortable questions. But third, as a direct consequence of that avoidance, we lose our sense of life meaning. People today literally don't know the meaning of their lives compared to previous generations, simply because they aren't even looking for it. And finally, this leads directly to the massive explosion of depression and anxiety we're seeing everywhere today. It just creates this profound, inescapable sense of hollowness. So now that we understand the severity of the disease, the prescription is actually surprisingly simple, even if it is the absolute last thing our brains want to do right now. You need to be bored. The counterintuitive cure to this modern epidemic of existential anxiety and hollowness is to intentionally practice boredom. You can't just cross your fingers and hope it happens. You have to actively invite it back into your daily routine. You have to literally relearn how to sit with that discomfort so you can reclaim your mind and actually allow those big, meaningful thoughts to surface.
Let's move to and see how this builds into some fantastic, practical daily challenges that Arthur Brooks lays out to retrain your brain. Step 1. Tomorrow morning, go to the gym without your phone. Literally leave it behind. No podcasts, no hype music, just you in your own head while you work out. Step 2. Commute in total silence. Don't even turn on the radio. Just drive or ride the train completely alone with your thoughts. And step 3. Actively start practicing periods of 15 minutes or more of pure, unadulterated boredom. It has probably been a really long time since you've done any of these things, but Brooks promises that enduring being alone in your head will generate some of the most interesting ideas you've had in years.
Now, you might be asking, why on earth would I put myself through this? Well, because the payoff is absolutely incredible. If you master the skill of boredom, basically everything else in your life gets better. First off, you'll actually find yourself less bored with your ordinary life. You'll be less bored at work, and you'll experience way better engagement in your relationships, simply because you're actually present. But the biggest payoff? You'll start digging into the true purpose, coherence, and significance of your life. By enduring just a little short-term discomfort, you unlock a far more meaningful, engaged, and ultimately a much happier life.
At this point, you're probably wondering, okay, but does the researcher actually do this himself? Is the doctor taking his own medicine? And the answer from Arthur Brooks is a resounding yes. He openly admits that he's prone to the exact same pathologies as the rest of us. He has the exact same human brain chemistry, and he has to actively fight the exact same addictive dopamine pull from his devices. Look, this doesn't come naturally to anyone in the modern world. It requires deliberate, conscious effort from every single one of us to push back against technology that is literally engineered to capture and hold our attention. So here are Arthur Brooks' personal protocols, rules you can literally adopt today. First up, no devices after 7 p.m., period. Second, do not sleep with your phone in your room. It wrecks your rest and practically guarantees you'll start your morning scrolling. Third, no devices during family meals. Why? Because you are there for the flesh and blood people actually sitting at the table with you, not the people living on a screen. And fourth, implement regular social media and screen cleanses, where you go for extended stretches without using the device at all. These are highly actionable, concrete boundaries to protect your brain's much-needed downtime. I do want to validate just how insanely hard this transition is going to be. At first, your brain will literally scream for dopamine. Brooks actually describes the feeling as having toddlers screaming inside your head, demanding, "Get the phone, get the phone." That is literal addiction talking. But if you can just hold out, that screaming eventually calms down. The addiction fades, and you're left feeling incredibly blessed and clear-headed. You'll eventually pick the phone back up to be a functioning human being, sure, but you'll realize your entire existence doesn't have to revolve around a glowing little rectangle.
Of course, the biggest excuse we all use is the fear of missing an emergency. But we've really got to be honest with ourselves and differentiate between a true emergency and a false one. You can easily set your phone to only ring for 1 or 2 whitelisted contacts if it's truly a life or death situation. But checking Twitter, endlessly scanning the daily news cycle, that is not an emergency. As Brooks bluntly puts it, your grandparents survived perfectly well without knowing what was happening every single second in Washington, D.C. We are totally killing our own peace of mind with this manufactured false urgency.
So I want to leave you with a stark, provocative challenge to take away from this explainer. Can you handle being in your own head tomorrow? Seriously, ask yourself that. Can you put the phone down, endure the mild discomfort of your own default mode network, and actually confront the big questions of your life? If you want to escape the hollowness of modern life, find real meaning, and genuinely feel happier, you have to at least try. The ultimate cure for your anxiety might literally just be doing absolutely nothing at all. Try it tomorrow. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it sparks a real change in your routine.